Hey, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. And we're zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is really for really how to let go, how to move on, how to deal productively, effectively, efficiently with the feelings of betrayal as a result of a exposure, a breakup, a decision on your part or their part to let go or leave the narcissist relationship, the psychopath relationship, in dealing with really specifically the disbelief. Why did this happen to me? This is not fair. I am angry. I'm getting stuck in these lower energy, negative emotions is a very common first stage. And it can become a quite prolonged first stage for those people who don't really have the tools to move beyond and rise above. So that is the focus of this video. And before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. Particularly, we have a lovely viewer in the country of Germany, a really fabulous gal who has been a follower of the channel for some months, who's recently made a donation. Thank you so much for your input, contribution, and your enhancement via comments to the channel. I do read each and every one of your comments, so I really appreciate the inspiration you brought me today to continue to bring content, and it is an honor and privilege to be able to provide this service, especially in a very specific niche, oftentimes, which is definitely lacking in the healthcare field. And a lot of people have wondered why the healthcare field is lacking. It is because really a lot of the healthcare is designed to help just specifically with the anxiety, depression, and some of the more abnormal psychology, like your schizophrenias, things of that nature. But it's a really underdeveloped segment that we're dealing here with you all. So it's an honor and privilege to be able to assist you. And I really want to get started here. And of course, if I've made a change in your life, please definitely feel free to donate to the channel. We have a PayPal donate now button here on the channel. And I'm going to go into one more quick specific here on kind of like housekeeping. I have received some correspondences that there are viewers who have not been able to receive my news feed, or like the news feed from YouTube on the channel, even though they're a subscriber. So I believe that the way YouTube is going to work, basically, so if you do not occasionally give a comment, express an interest in one of the ads that run, click on one of the ads, give a comment, a thumbs up. Basically, it's like you're purged as an inactive account. So you might want to just check out some of the ads or make a comment or a thumbs up or something so it keeps you in an active status, because I guess sometimes they tend to purge the inactive account. So moving forward through this viewer's question, and it is really, when you're in that stage of disbelief, you're asking, why me? You're saying, this is ridiculous. I'm so angry. My life is ruined. I am stuck in a state of complex PTSD where I'm terrified and afraid. My thoughts are disconnected, disjointed, and I have just sort of a lens of fear, of terror. I cannot focus. My senses aren't in the groove. I am not having a congruency between my body, mind, and spirit. In other words, the spirit is kind of willing, but the body is not able, sort of disconnect. And this is a very sort of helpless phase, which your body is processing and working through. And, the ruminations might be very strong. The nightmares might be very strong. The dreams where you have intrusive thoughts, either during the day or at night. You can't stop thinking about this person, worrying about them, feeling suspicious or paranoid. Are they doing, because of the psychological influence that they've, had over your own thinking pattern, your own value system, your own self-belief, and then therefore kind of your the chemical nature of your brain which oftentimes is put on overdrive, the fight or flight. The stress hormones are now taking over in your life. You are not supposed to live by the hormones of stress. The covert narcissist or psychopath definitely will have you feeling like the state of love is to live under that hormone of stress where you're constantly feeling not good enough. You're living under the fight or flight, I better or else sort of mentality where you feel like if I don't become this way, then they won't love me. That very conditional love, which is set up in their, if you look at like a measuring stick, it's like, if you don't measure up here, well then, your fears are going to become true. I'm going to leave you for this. I'm going to do this to you. I'm going to smear campaign you here. And then your thought patterns begin to go. And then, this person is basically, flaunting their new supply in front of you. The threats, the texting, the videos, the absence, the withdrawal of communication, all of these sort of, I basically, call it, being stuck in the groove. It's kind of like if you've ever had a car that was stuck, either stuck in mud or stuck in ice. And then the more you spin it, the less traction you get. And you just dig the hole deeper. And then you're really, and then you need somebody to pull you out. So this is basically where we're at. Where, this is like an emotional tow truck for you now. How do you get out of that rut? How do you get out of that really sort of valley moment where you really feel like, you can't leave the house. You can't trust yourself. You're in a constant mentality or mindset, ruminating thoughts of, of hopelessness, of not being able to trust the world. And, your hormones of stress are still sort of, impregnated in the mind, and you need to get things sorted out and kind of get footing again, get traction again. And really that is really self-belief. And you need to realize that, they have, how this occurred because of that constant either criticism, beratement, threat, the conditional love, all the conditions that were met for you to be loved, where you were thinking, planning, and then you had a vision of how your life was going to go. You had trust in, maybe, you're on the mortgage together, you're on the bank account, you were relying on them, and then now you need to carve yourself away. You need to see yourself as kind of apart from, it's almost like having, an emotional amputation from this individual, where you're so inextricably, part of them and they are part of you that you feel like you cannot, you are unwhole, you are hurt, you are not, you do not have, you feel like it's like an emotional surgery where you feel like part of you is severed off and your heart, your mind, feelings, your senses are not working. And that's the whole goal of the recovery journal, is to resensitize yourself. And yes, I'm going to be doing a video, and I think I'm, where it gets all into one place, where I'm developing this, complete total system so you can resensitize yourself and get your thoughts there as well. But my feeling right now is that, for one, so it's organized and it's, kind of, you can refer to it again and again while you continue listening to the videos. But for number one, realize that oftentimes those stress hormones are what has, been the cause of a lot of this. The cortisol, the adrenals, the depletion of the serotonin in the brain, the dopamine, which is, you're no longer feeling rewarded because you've realized that this person was not who you thought they were. The mask, has fallen. You've seen that they are, now leaving for another woman or making you feel inadequate, and they're displaying a lack of empathy. So they're not there for you. Realize that in the narcissist and the psychopath, it is all about them and it is all about their needs. And, they will have a number of different supply sources, which are giving that narcissistic ego feed, and realizing, that's not the hot spot for you to be, is to be feeding them. So it's kind of getting a new look and a new perspective on things. realizing that it's not a coveted position to be targeted by this type of individual. You might have felt it was, this person might have had your commitment, they might have had your heart, but yet it is not a coveted position to be the supply source. It is not a coveted position. It is exhausting. It will deplete you. It'll cause you to live by, the false expectations and constantly living to appease them and please them and constantly jump higher, jump through more hoops. That is not what love is. Love is, you might have been conditioned to feel that, but that is not what it is. Love is really the cessation of fear. It is the cessation of that judgment. It is the cessation of that criticism. It is a feeling of expansiveness and coming into peace in your own body. So this is a new state and one of humility. So this is really the core of the video right here, is that it is okay to come into a peaceful state in your body. Oftentimes people have not been able to come to this state, live in this state, decide from this state, choose from this state, because they are so conditioned and rehearsed in your emotions and in your inner chemical culture, to live by these hormones of criticism, stress, and that sort of adrenal explosion, of they're back and then they're gone, and then they're back and then they're gone. So you've been on like an emotional yo-yo of sorts. And so that high, which you are back with them, might give you that feeling of like, I'm safe, I'm blessed, I'm whole again. And so that you're striving for that chemical connection, but then it's been lost again. You've bottomed out, more of the suspicion, are they cheating on me? They said they weren't going to cheat. And then, back comes the fighting and the financial discussion, or, you're feeling afraid once again, and you're not feeling okay on yourself. So to get to that, you need to realize it is very important to come to a space of peace within yourself, in a state, namely, of humility. And humility basically means to lower yourself in dignity or importance. So in other words, what you're fighting for is your face or dignity with this person. You're fighting for dignity in all the wrong place. You're having your dignity and your self-importance caught up in this person and how they're reflecting it back to you. When in essence, that is not the source of your dignity. The source of your dignity should be from within, and you should be able to recall this and count on this at all times. So your sense of dignity should be able to be while you're just seated, while you are just, in whatever, in a t-shirt, in a pair of jeans, in your pajamas, while you're brushing your teeth, while you're taking your shower, while you're at your job, while you're driving your car. Your sense of self-dignity should not be based on getting your approval, love, acceptance, validation from this individual. That is part of what's perpetuating the problem, and it's causing that disease, that anxiety, that social anxiety. It's based and contingent on something outside of yourself, which is an erroneous thought. It is an error of thinking. It is what needs to be corrected. So, and I hope you've stayed on this long, and I know it's kind of a long video, but, to come into a state of humility, to be humble. And if we look at what humble means, it's to lower oneself in sense of dignity or importance. In other words, take yourself out of the feeling of needing to be important to this person. You're grappling and striving to try to do that. It also means to decisively defeat another team or competitor, typically one that was previously thought to be superior. So in other words, you need to be humbled by your understanding. You need to come into a state of humility. And humility comes from the Latin word humus, which means ground. And the Latin humilis, which means low or lowly. And then it was, transmorphed for the Old Norse and then became to the Middle English humble. So from humus, and then also which means earth, and grounded, and and then now what we know as humble or humility. And so really that is the number one. And then so you need to experience humbleness or humility, sort of a coming down from the fight, a kind of resigning from the competition. In other words, especially from someone who you thought was superior. So it's a state of humility, humbleness. There's a lot of great verses in the Bible. We all have a lot of different religious texts. And if you really look at this sort of temperance, humility is a very important state, and it's very opposing to that of narcissism or pride. So if you realize, if you are trying to get approval from a narcissist, an individual who is identified or presents with pathological self-importance and a lack of empathy, a sense of entitlement, as well as a psychopath who has a lack of conscience, who will do whatever's required for them to get whatever it is that they want, realize that your opponent, now you need to let go of and really restore a sense of humbleness and humility, lowliness, and that of being grounded, that of kind of coming down into a state of what I call basically peace, the cessation of struggle, the cessation of that intense fear, the cessation of that intense judgment or listening to those negative messages. In other words, it's time to separate from all those negative, wrong messages that they were giving you to get what they wanted. And it is to realize that they are maybe an opponent and not a collaborator with you. It's a really different position, but once you come into that state, you can come into your own body, which a lot of people have not been able to exist in. They have felt depersonalized, they have felt humiliated, they have felt embarrassed, they have felt shame. All these are counter indicators to that of being humble, of being grounded, of being peaceful. So really you need to come to that space and then let go those other feelings. In other words, and then begin to develop the positive, orderly direction thinking from that state. But coming into your own body, if you're 4'2", if you're 5'1", if you're 6'6", you are your body. You are where you are right now. If you come into that space and then retain a sense of humility and dignity in that throughout your day, and that is also incorporated with a lot of self-forgiveness, forgiveness of this person, and then letting it go because, the narcissist you did not make. There's nothing that you did wrong. There's nothing that you failed them on. They fail life all the time. It is not, it is not you who is a failure. You have come up against an opponent which has a pathological sense of self-importance and a lack of empathy, so they're not able to deliver and connect with you on that heart level. It is just not a space where they occupy. Albert Einstein, you cannot simultaneously prepare and prevent for war. I equate that to you cannot simultaneously get your emotional needs met with a person who is not in that heart space. It is, you're not going to be able to coexist. It's, and so you need to come into that state of humility and work on those moments, work on those appointments with yourself, that specific block of time where you're coming into a sense of humility. And so for some people, it's a very unfamiliar space. So it's very important to realize that oftentimes, fear is no longer the space where you earn love. Love will come to you. Love will be attracted to you. But you need to enter into that space before you try to continue to attract, and relate to people as like a rebound or, a recovery. You're going to keep the same wounds going. You need to truly heal that place and cauterize it emotionally for good. And you need, and so humility and humbleness is this place to come in where you begin to kind of become at peace with your own body and then write it out over, write it out 100 times, 200 times, that the prayer of which does create the feeling of gratitude, then, which I want you to enter into a space of gratitude. Lord, Lord, help me. Let me bear with me when accept that which you cannot change. What is that prayer? This is very important. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So if we really blow out these very specific components, you will find a whole, basic time capsule of what you need to enter into. The serenity, so that is also found in humbleness. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change. You cannot change the disorder of this person. You can't change their selfish value system. You cannot change their betraying behavior. You cannot change that is their pattern. That is their design. That is their identity. They're going to continue to inflict that upon the other people. It is not a coveted position to try to change or to be in the midst of. And then the courage to change the things I can. So courage, meaning the ability to take action despite the feeling of fear. The ability to take action despite discomfort. The courage, which means to be able to focus and then begin to enter into new thought patterns, new emotions, and to change therefrom. So to change from the stress to the peace, to the humility, to the feeling of serenity, security, and then having the thought processes, the cognitions to reinforce that emotional state. And then the wisdom, which means the learning, the lessons learned, which is your wisdom. So once you really learn something, you are wise. And oftentimes you see wise children, but oftentimes you see wise adults. And you say, people are wise in their old age. So to take stock of your wisdom, it is very important to have written down in your recovery journal the lessons learned. The lessons learned. These are very unique and custom made to each individual who is watching right now and has been through what they have. Whether it's through a narcissist, a psychopath, whether it was 6 months, a 3-year fling, a 5-year fling, or a 25-year message, there are some lessons that you have learned. And you need absolutely positively to write these down and reinforce them and gaze your eyes upon them. Put them in front of your eyes. Get a hand, get a pen. If you need to type, I don't want you to type. I want you to hand write it through your own handwriting. I don't care if this is the information age with tablets, computers, voice recognition, etc. It is not the same as when you handwrite it, because your handwritten, you have a symbiotic relationship between your pen and the paper. There is a sense of kinship, relation, kinesthesiology. There is a sense of connection, a sense of connection. The word that I'm looking for is bond. There is a physical bond between a person, a pen, and then the paper. There's an energetic resonance. It is your emotional signature. The handwriting that is yours, that you have learned over time. These are your lessons learned. This is your voice. This is your personality. This is the inner you, which oftentimes you don't get a chance to be in touch with during your day. This is the generation of your lessons learned. What did you learn? What did you learn? What did you learn from this person, this experience, this amount of time? What did you learn? Did you learn that you need to trust your inner voice? Do you need to trust, that you don't date people who are constantly on their phone? Do you need to learn that, you don't tolerate being treated or talked to in a certain way? Do you learn that someone who has cheated on you is doomed to repeat it? Do you learn that someone who is of certain sort of way of talking is not to be trusted, so that you can identify the pattern, the evil looks, the criticism? What did you learn? You need to write these down and at least number your page 1 through 20. And what did you learn? And if you learn these over the course of the past week, the past day, the past second, you need to break it down, because these are your lessons learned, and you need to realize that and then develop, your wisdom from this. And these are your very specific custom-made lessons that are yours, that have a fit like a glove for your psychology, your cognitions, and your emotionality, your emotional intelligence. So this is the source of what's going to generate the healing for you. And then, keep it written, because when it looks back at you in the eyes, it speaks volumes. It soaks into your psychology, the subconscious, the way that, your passing thoughts cannot. You need to have it written down, looking at you. You're you're using the visual cortex, and a lot of the other hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, which is able to review, research, and then make a vision moving forward. So it'll help you automatically think on your feet and then begin to realize what you were attracted to is no longer attractive. What was attracting in your life is no longer attracting. You are now attracting. Once you do this and stay with it, it does take time. You need to stay with this. 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Guess what? Then, it's like, then it starts getting easier, and then the healing takes place. You have to let Providence, which is the universe, which is the quantum field, begin to respond to your healing. And then the attraction begins to occur, and then lessons, better feelings, better choices, better emotions, truer smiles, clarity in your eyes begins to occur. Yes, even those people who have had PTSD, fear, ruminations, these begin to subside. But you need to enter into that state of humility, humbleness, begin to have that kind of come within your body. And then furthermore, work on those areas of resensitization, and then those astralmations, and working all the various segments of the recovery journal that, yes, I am putting into one focus place for you all, so it can be organized, so you can have it at a resource, and then we're going to build upon that with time. I'm getting together some ideas where I can either have a resource here or a specific website specifically blow out those areas, so we can, it can begin to evolve for you and be very personal and customized and interactive. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. We're going along. I hope these videos do help. Please donate if you wish. Please share. Please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support.